What if the greatest love of your life wasn't meant to stay, but to break you open? What if the person who touched you so deeply wasn't your shelter, but a mirror reflecting everything you needed to see? You wonder why the universe would let you feel something so intense, so vivid, so real, only to take it away. Why would it plant that kind of connection in your life and then sever it without explanation? The answer isn't romantic, it's spiritual. This wasn't about finding a soulmate, it was about waking up. You're grieving, yes, but not just for them. You're grieving the silence inside you that echoes louder now that they're gone. It's not unfinished love that hurts. It's the sense that something sacred was revealed and then taken. Like being handed a key to a hidden door, only to realize it opened a part of yourself, not the other. Carl Jung believed that life-shaking encounters are never random. They're archetypal events, forces from the deep unconscious meant to catalyze change. They don't show up to give you comfort. They show up to wreck the story you've been clinging to. You're not broken because you lost someone. You're broken because something deeper cracked open inside you. And in that fracture, something dormant finally stirred. Something that had been waiting for the silence. Maybe they weren't here to stay. Maybe they showed up only to hold that sacred mirror, the one you've spent your life avoiding, and then disappear. Now all that remains is you, standing in front of what's been shattered. But even shattered glass reflects, and in that reflection, the journey begins. You were taught to believe that when love is real, it stays. That when two hearts truly meet, that should be enough. That depth means destiny, and intensity means forever. But what if that belief is the most dangerous illusion of all? What if not every soul-shaking love is meant to last? What if some loves don't arrive as bridges, but as earthquakes, meant not to connect, but to collapse what you thought was stable? The illusion grows from the hunger for control. You want to believe you can hold love in place, keep it alive through effort, protect it from time. But true love, the kind that transforms you, refuses to be domesticated. It doesn't fit inside. Permanence. It tears apart the identity you carefully assembled. You met someone, and for a moment, the world stopped spinning. Their presence burned through your layers, touched the part of you that hadn't felt seen in years. It was raw. It was pure. It was fire. But the fire that warms you can also consume you. Then came the silence, the realization that even though the love was real, the path wasn't. Not because you failed, but because the encounter had done its work. The mission was never to stay. It was to spark. The ego protests. If it wasn't meant to be, why did it feel so true? And the soul replies, because it was true. But truth doesn't always come to stay. It comes to awaken. Real love doesn't mean forever, and forever doesn't always mean growth. Sometimes the one who shakes your soul isn't here to complete you, but to mirror the pieces you've abandoned. Not to fill your emptiness, but to show you where you're still waiting to be whole. Jung called it the shadow, the forgotten, exiled, uncomfortable self. And sometimes, only love can draw it out. Not through cruelty, but through affection. Not through conflict, but through reflection. And that's why it cuts so deep. The person you couldn't keep didn't come to punish you. They came to reveal you, to point at your fear, your dependency, your quiet ache to be chosen by someone else when you haven't chosen yourself. You look back and whisper, if only we had more time. But maybe more time wouldn't bring more truth. Only more longing, more illusion, more delay. The heart craved continuation, but the soul craved ignition. You didn't lose love. You lost the myth that love would come clean, painless, and perfectly timed. Now, standing in front of the broken mirror, you don't see them anymore. You see yourself, not a fantasy, not a victim, but someone stripped of illusion, finally honest, and honesty is where becoming begins. You try to move on. You distract your mind, stay busy, bury the ache beneath to-do lists and new conversations. But late at night, when the noise dies down and the world turns quiet, something inside still aches for what never had the chance to fully become. It's not just them you miss. It's who you were with them in your orbit. The version of you that came alive in their presence. The one who laughed deeper, felt more, saw the world through a lens sharpened by intensity and awe. That person awakened parts of you no one else had reached. Their presence brought out the light and the shadow, the sacred and the raw. And now that they're gone, life feels flatter. You're surrounded by people, but haunted by absence. So the cycle begins. You ask, why give me something so profound if it wasn't meant to last? You whisper to the void, was it just bad timing? Will they ever come back? And the silence doesn't answer. Because this kind of pain isn't meant to be solved. It's meant to be felt. You revisit old messages, replay memories like scenes from a film, the way they smiled, the tone of their voice, a single moment that branded your nervous system. Every detail feels like a relic, sacred and impossible to release. But that absence, it's not just grief, it's weight, a presence of what's missing. And maybe what you're truly missing isn't even them anymore. It's the version of yourself that bloomed when they were near. You lost more than a person. You lost a mirror into your own soul. The one who reminded you of your depth, your capacity, your need to feel profoundly alive. And now, the world feels dull in comparison. You begin to question yourself. Maybe I should have tried harder, said more, stayed softer. You bargain with the past, rewrite scenes that can't be changed, but truth doesn't work like that. What needed to happen, did. Some connections aren't puzzles to fix, they're portals to walk through. And once you cross, there's no going back. No rewinding the story, no recreating the moment. Jung reminded us, the soul doesn't seek safety, it seeks expansion. And real expansion always demands loss. You lost someone who felt tailor-made for your soul. But what if the deeper purpose was to remake you in the fire of that loss? What if this wasn't abandonment, but initiation? The heartbreak, the unfulfilled connection, the interrupted story, all of it fermented something primal, something that needed to break down in order to be rebuilt with integrity. Yes, it hurts, and it feels unfair. But what if unfair is just a label we place on what we don't yet understand? What if this was the only way to bring to light what you were unwilling to face? There's a kind of strength born only in solitude, when all the illusions are gone and only you remain, whole in your own brokenness. That's where real power lives. The person you loved became a ghost, a lingering echo in your mind, in your choices, in your silence. But that echo isn't asking you to rewind. It's asking you to descend into yourself, into what remains, into what now needs to be born. The pain hasn't gone, but perhaps pain isn't the end. It's the path. Because even love that walks away leaves behind a trail. And if you dare to follow that trail, you just might find yourself whole, changed, awake. Carl Jung didn't believe in coincidence. He spoke of synchronicity, those mysterious alignments between your inner world and outer events. When someone shows up in your life and it feels ancient, undeniable, almost fated, it's not random. It's symbolic. It's a call to transformation. You don't attract just anyone. You attract what your soul needs in that exact moment. Not comfort, but confrontation. Not completion, but clarity. The people who disturb you most often hold the mirror you've been avoiding. They reflect not just your brilliance, but everything you buried to survive. Your unmet needs, your projections, your romanticized wounds. The shadow, as Jung called it, isn't evil. It's the forgotten. And nothing brings it to the surface like the love you can't have. Unrequited love isn't weak. It's radioactive. It charges every part of you. It turns your life into myth. It opens a dimension that logic can't navigate. Suddenly you feel exposed, unarmored, like someone lit a fire in the basement of your soul. So what happens when the story ends before it begins? When the connection is alive, but the reality doesn't allow it to grow? Jung wouldn't offer neat answers. He'd say this: the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed, and you have been transformed. You thought they were here to make you happy, but maybe they came so you'd finally understand what you've been chasing was never outside you. The love you longed for was waiting beneath your layers, crushed under the weight of seeking. These encounters carry archetypal energy. The other becomes a messenger, a gatekeeper, a sacred disturbance. They weren't sent to complete your story, but to expose the unfinished chapter within you. Losing someone you never truly had doesn't mean the connection was false. It means it was mythic. The myth of the seeker, the myth of the mirror, the myth of the soul that awakens through heartbreak. You are not being punished. You are being purified. You are being stripped of illusion. That ache you feel is not your end. It's your alchemy. It's the soul's raw process of becoming. You were touched by something real, something ancient, something so profound it reordered your entire sense of self. And now that they're gone, you're being asked to carry the flame alone. Jung believed the purpose of life wasn't to stay safe. It was to individuate, to shed the masks, to own your wholeness, to stop searching for yourself in someone else's gaze. But that journey demands rupture. And maybe this was your first rupture, your inner earthquake, the breaking open that cleared space for a more honest self to rise, not the version built to please, but the one built to live. You thought love was your destiny, but maybe the loss was. Maybe it's the crack, not the comfort, that carries the truth you needed. It's brutal, yes. It feels unfair. But it's sacred, because not all pain is punishment. Some pain is initiation. They weren't your destination. They were your spark. The beginning, the match. And now, it's up to you to decide. Will you carry that spark into the dark? Will you turn the absence into presence? The mirror into wisdom? You can keep searching for closure. Or you can understand that some connections don't come to give answers. They come to give you a soul. And soul is forged in the dark, in the breaking, in the surrender. But even there, in the shadow, something luminous begins. You've spent so long asking why they didn't stay, that you forgot to ask who you became because they left. And that question, that shift, is where the real transformation begins. Because when love walks away, something remains. And what remains is you. Not the naive you who believed love alone would be enough, but a version stripped down to essence, raw, wiser, more awake. A self who now knows that hearts don't break without purpose. They open to what has no name yet. Yes, it hurt. Yes, it still does. But somehow, somewhere inside, you've started to sense this pain is no longer a prison. It's a passage. It's a marker that you lived something real and lived through it. You survived the silence, the missing, the echo that keeps circling back. And piece by piece, you're learning how to walk with it, to shape it, to make it yours. Life won't return that love to you, but it may return you to yourself, more whole than you've ever been. The universe isn't cruel, it's surgical, and it knew you needed to crack. Because only when the armor breaks does the light know where to enter. That person came like a storm, tearing through everything you thought was solid. They took the walls you clung to, but what they couldn't take was what you found beneath the rubble. You no longer need to beg for love to stay. You've learned how to stay with yourself. You've learned how to meet your own eyes in the shattered mirror and see not a tragedy, but a rebirth. Because broken pieces still reflect. And sometimes they reflect you more honestly than wholeness ever could. There's no pretending anymore. The illusion is gone. What remains is truth. And truth is the only place rebirth can begin. You can rebuild now with shaky hands, with an open heart, with no guarantees, but with depth. You can turn what was loss into language, what was silence into creation, what was abandonment into returning home to yourself. You don't have to erase what happened. You just have to integrate it. Because love that leaves also leaves behind seeds. And you get to choose, will you water nostalgia or growth? You're not weak because you felt. You're courageous because you didn't hide. You dove into the depth of that love, even knowing it might not last. And now, you've emerged. Yes, with scars, but scars are living proof that something reached you, changed you, left its mark. You can thank it now, not for the pain, but for what it unearthed, for what it dismantled, for what it demanded you finally face. That love was never a home. It was a bridge, never a shelter, but a wind, not a finish line, but a direction. And now, you move forward, not to forget, but to honor, not the story that never was, but the person you became because of it. You were never abandoned. You were awakened, and now, fully awake, you walk with a new voice, a new presence, a new gaze. Because here's the truth they never told you. Maybe you weren't meant to live that love, but you were meant to be forged by it. And that, no one can ever take from you. Now look inward, not as someone desperate for closure, but as someone who finally understands. Some questions are not puzzles to be solved. They are thresholds to be lived. You are not who you were before this love entered your life, and that, by itself, is enough. Stop reaching for an ending that never arrived. Start honoring the middle that shattered your illusions and redefined your soul. Some stories don't end on the page. They end in the marrow. They finish within us, in silence, in dreams, in the subtle way we change without realizing it. Let today be the moment you write the final sentence of this chapter, not with bitterness, but with reverence. This wasn't a mistake. It was a visitation, a divine disruption, a moment that bent the arc of your existence and left you staring at yourself with new eyes. So here's a small but brave act. Write in the comments a sentence that still echoes within you, something that honors the depth of what you lived, even if it didn't last. You can borrow this one. They didn't stay, but I did. Or craft your own, a phrase that anchors you to your own becoming. Let this be your ritual, a final offering to the fire, a conscious breath that says, I was here, I loved, I lost, and I transformed. If this video stirred something real inside you, leave a like, not for the algorithm, but for your own reflection, for the version of you that dared to feel, dared to fall, dared to wake up. And if your soul is still hungry for meaning, if you crave the kind of truth that strips you bare but brings you home, subscribe. This channel is for people like you, people who've been cracked open and want to build something sacred from the pieces. Because the love that left didn't take everything. It left something behind. It left fire. It left a mirror. It left a silence that still speaks. And now it's your choice. Will you run from what you see, or will you rise with it? Because in the end, the highest act of love is to become who you were meant to be, even if that means walking alone, but never again, asleep.